You're watching the Cross-Platform Media Podcast. I'm Yocom.
I'm Aurie.
So today we're going to be discussing the Spooder Dude movie Across the Spooderverse.
Okay. Yeah, sure, we can call it that.
Aurie and I have seen the movie twice, and did you love it more the first time or the second time?
First time, 100%. Second time, I was a little bit like, okay, like, it's just gonna be over. Part of that was because I was tired. Other part of it was because, like, that movie has so much information just jam-packed into it. Just like, I mean, within the first, 5 minutes of the movie, you get so much of Gwen's
the super
backstory.
Long prologue.
Yeah. Just, you learn her entire, life story within that, just, short little span. They just get right to the point. Hit the gas right from the get-go, and they do not stop.
Yeah, I was quite surprised that they did that intro, or not the intro, the title screen. So you're watching the movie for 10 minutes, and then it's Marvel Presents, and it's oh, I thought we were already watching.
Yeah. It definitely did feel a little disjointed.
And I mean, it was a helpful transition to Miles Morales, though.
Yeah. For sure.
So I can see that, and yeah, so it was helpful. I feel so you loved it more the first time. In some ways, I would agree with that. But seeing it the second time, I feel like I appreciated it more.
Yeah.
Because I picked up a lot more on those key little things. And this goes without saying for the podcast as well, there are going to be spoilers, so if you have not seen it yet, you're going to get spoiled, and if you care about that kind of thing, then wait to watch and listen to the podcast, or if you just don't care and you just want to see us gabbing about the movie, then just gabbing, then it's alright. We're just collapsing. And so...
Bye. Oh my god.
So Aurie and I were at IKEA earlier, just punning it up with all the names. That's where I got my new chair.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what this chair was called.
Icaro.
Icaro. Icaro. Yeah.
What?
Like Ricola?
Oh my god.
So,
dear Lord.
Back to the Spider-Verse. Or Across the Spider-Verse?
Yeah. Yeah.
So... Yeah, so picking up on those little nuances really, because I remember the first time I saw that movie, about halfway through, maybe a little bit more than halfway through, I was like, this is a long movie.
Yeah. How? What's the running time on it? Do we know?
I believe the running time was a full 2 hours. I think it might have been just a little bit longer. 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So, I feel around that halfway point a little bit more, I'm how is this thing gonna wrap up? I had no idea.
Yep.
I had no idea that it was gonna be a to be continued.
Yeah. That was one of the things it was bittersweet, because on the one hand, I'm oh my gosh, you guys gave us more to look forward to. And you leave us hanging, which is both really sad, but also feels good. But also after sitting there for 2 hours and 20 minutes going, shit, there's more? There's more. Okay.
I know when that movie ended, and I turned to my buddy and I was like, oh, okay, so next year we'll get the other half.
And he was like, no.
And he goes, or another 5 years. I'm like, what? And he goes, well, it took 5 years between the first one and this one. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. We're not going to wait 5 years. So we Googled it after. Apparently the second one's already been in production, and we are going to be getting, rumored, we are going to be getting the next one next year.
Oh, thank God.
So we're not,
Okay.
At least, theoretically, we don't have to wait, 5 years before we get the other one. And so one of the aspects, we've talked about this, I would say not in full detail, but we've talked about it quite a bit. But I want to hear more about, so as our artist and somebody who really understands art more, like, I can love and appreciate art, and, even though it's subjective, what's good, what's not, and everything, but I can appreciate really good art and what goes into it, and I've seen a lot of mixed media. But I want to hear from you, and I'll ask you this one question first, from an artistic standpoint, and possibly an animation standpoint, so if you're able to...
Yeah.
What goes into making this movie with just about every single character having a different art design, and having them, like, interact with each other seamlessly? Because to my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, and then I'll let you take the reins on this one, so for me and my knowledge when it comes to editing, like, if I wanted to film something where I'm sitting on the couch talking to myself, I would have to leave the camera in a fixed position, sit on one, and then having half the conversation, sit on the other cushion having the other half of that conversation, and then I would have to lay those two pieces of footage over each other.
Right.
So that way it shows me sitting on both sides of that couch, as opposed to using, like, a green screen necessarily, but I could use a green screen. So is there a similar thing in art where, like, in this field of animation where, you've got all those different designs, like, is it overlaying, or... Because it doesn't make sense to me that you can have different pieces of animation in the same, like, line of footage.
Right, so there is a little bit of that. So everybody is animated in different styles.
Right.
And that's art style, not necessarily animation style, with the exception of two
art style, yeah.
Right, with the exception of two characters, which I'll get into in a second.
Okay.
This was the craziest thing ever. So you and I
Is it
worked...
Hobie? Okay,
it's
go on.
Hobie and Miles.
Okay, go on.
Little teaser for you. But I mean, the whole process of working on creating and building a character. You and I worked on that with our little... The
community critters, and I think that would be really great to say that we now have, and our community critters mugs. There's the cool croc, as well as our awkward platypus. We are going to be working on... I am currently talking with a few different printers and looking at printing on demand companies. We've got shirts that are coming as well. We'll show those at a later time. But right now we are enjoying our community critter mugs, and on the back they do have our cross-platform media logo. Back to what we were saying. Yes, we've worked together in creating characters.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you know, like, working on the platypus took us, I don't know, 3-4 months just to develop it in the first place.
I would say, yeah, because I believe we started the critters initially in November of last year.
Yeah.
And we didn't finish until, just with the first platypus, I think was like March, because the 3 other critters, after we got the platypus done, like, we were able to knock them out because we knew what we were doing.
Right, and we already had the style established.
Right.
So, when you have, I don't know how many spider people were actually animated, but when you have that many different new styles to animate, you go through this community critters process. Woo! I spilled my water a little bit. That's fine. But when you go through that process of creating a character from scratch, like, I mean, we went through a bunch of different drafts of the platypus.
Right.
So just think about how many different drafts of the Spider-Man, the single Spider-Man that you have to go to. Now, granted, some of the characters like Indian Spider-Man and Hobie Brown, Gwen Stacy, all of those characters are already pre-established. Spider-Man 299, Miguel O'Hara. already pre-established. So a lot of the time they already had some of the character work done for them.
Mm-hmm.
They just had to figure out how to translate it.
Got it.
So here's where the layering comes in.
Mm-hmm.
The way that animation works from a certain standpoint is that you can draw almost anything in any style.
Right.
And put them next to each other in the same frame, in the same drawing.
Okay.
You don't have to layer it necessarily. Each animation is done frame by frame, which is just a single image at a time. Like if you were to look at a film reel,
yeah,
right, and see like, oh, here's a frame, here's a frame, here's a frame.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, this actually goes back to the first Spider-Verse. Everybody within the Spider-Verse is animated in one PFP, I believe.
Okay.
Which is, or PPF, which is one pose per frame.
Okay.
Meaning every single frame they change a pose.
Mm-hmm.
With Miles Morales, though, they wanted him to feel super off-kilter and feel super awkward
mm-hmm.
amongst the other Spider people, so they actually animated him in 2 PPF. So every 2 frames, he changes his pose,
okay.
which makes him feel very, like, awkward and like he's tripping over himself in comparison to the other Spider people, who are very, very smooth.
Interesting, okay.
And that actually kind of ends up transferring over into this later one, which later on we know is because he's the original Anomaly, which is crazy.
Right.
Which is why he feels so off-kilter in comparison to all the other Spider-Man. Now let's talk about Hobie Brown.
Let's talk about Hobie, our boy.
Oh my god.
Dude, I'm gonna say Hobie really took me back to when I was in high school.
Oh my god.
Because in punk rock Yocom days.
Oh no.
So
Yep.
I think I've showed you the picture from my school ID. I'll have to throw it up on the screen here with my green mohawk and my piercings, but not so much because the snake bites and the septum.
Mm-hmm.
So not just because of punk rock Yocom and Hobie, but there's kind of this thing amongst the punk rock kids where a lot of the times we just wanted to be British punk. And we all, in some way...
Yes.
We all just really, at the end of the day, wanted to be British.
Yep.
And, like, I had blue plaid bondage pants with all the fake zippers and the straps and, like...
Yep.
Oh, man. I wish I had more, like, full-body pictures of punk rock Yocom, but I just have my school ID for now. I'm sure if I found one of my old cell phones, there's probably pictures in there.
I don't know if I want to see that.
It's great.
Oh my god.
But anyway, so like when I saw Hobie on screen, I'm like, oh hell yeah. And it was also funny because he's got the mohawk. He's got the
spike mohawk.
That's a so I think we call it like the Liberty Spike mohawk. But I was like, how does his mask stay on? Obviously, I'm applying real world logic to a cartoon.
Right, that suspension of disbelief.
But then, of course, when he pulls it off, and one of the greatest lines in the movie is, "Man, how are you even cooler without it on?" I was always cool.
How are you even cooler under your mask? I was just cool the whole time.
His animation, like, it seemed like
it looked straight out of like a Green Day poster or like a music video, which
like his animation. Now, correct me if I'm wrong.
Right.
The reason it stood out to me so much is everybody had this 3D effect to them, but he was the only one that really seemed as always a 2D like clipping from a magazine. Because he had a little bit of like a wider outline, right? Like there was always like you never saw like if his hand was like this, you didn't always see the negative space. It was kind of like it was cut out of the magazine. He almost looked like a sticker.
Exactly.
Yeah, like a sticker. Yeah. Right. So what goes into animating somebody like him in compared to everybody else?
Yeah. So in an odd way, it's both easier and harder.
Okay.
Because with everybody else, you can create 3D models of characters. With Hobie Brown, you have to create a 2D way of, like, you have to figure out how to put a 2D being into a 3-dimensional space.
Right.
Which, drawing 2D as a concept is very easy. You don't have to worry about shadow. You don't really have to worry about perspective that much, like you do with all of these other characters. But at the same time, you have a 2D character in a 3D space. So it does not fit. So here comes a crazy part with it.
Is he also in the same, what was it, PPF?
Mm-hmm.
Is he in the same, okay, this is, okay, go on.
So, the way he's animated, he's I believe he's the only 2-dimensional character, aside from, like, Penny Parker, but she still has, like, a 3-dimensional concept to her.
Oh, yeah.
And same with Peter Porker, but he still moves within the 3-dimensional space. Whereas Hobie kind of moves 2D.
Right.
And, like, linearly on an XY axis. So, Hobie Brown is the only really 2-dimensional Spider-Man that we have. He is also...
Wasn't the muscular Spider-Man, our friend was saying he's the one that everybody hated?
Yeah.
Perfect pose. Possible disturbance in the alley. Better go check it out.
So, Hobie Brown is animated in 3 ppf.
Okay.
So, every 3 poses, or every 3 frames, he changes his pose.
So,
which means,
everybody is 1, Miles is 2, and he is 3.
Which means that he is literally rebelling against the animation style. Which adds just a whole other level and makes him my favorite.
Because he rebels against everything.
Yes, it's a metaphor for capitalism.
Taking a shit on the system.
I'll salute you. So good! So good! Oh my god.
I love that.
Yeah. And, like...
Is he the only character that you know of right now that is in 3 ppf?
In that film, they intentionally did it so that he's the only character animated in 3 ppf.
So that he really could rebel against capitalism. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so let's kind of... Let's pause on the animation there and talk about just kind of everything that went down in that film.
Yeah.
So, I really... It's like, obviously, I want to jump straight into HQ. I want to talk about HQ so bad.
Yeah.
But let's take a pause and start with the first dramatic scene. So, they're in the museum.
Oh, I was thinking Gwen Stacy's Peter.
Oh, okay. No, see, I was thinking the museum.
Okay. No.
So okay. Well, we can touch on that. How, yeah, like Gwen and Peter. I want to know if that's from a comic and what comic that's from.
I do too.
So if you guys know, let us know in the comments below about. So in the movie, it opens up with Peter Parker. He comes up with a serum because, you know, he's not Spider-Man, Gwen is. He develops a serum and turns into a giant lizard man.
In an attempt to defend himself.
But then Gwen doesn't know that it's Peter. So she fights against him and he knocks down, like, essentially the ceiling.
Yeah.
And, like, some lighting trusses and everything. And ends up getting crushed. And as he's dying, you know, he's returning back to his normal self. Let us know if that is canon to one of the comics, or if that was something that was created for the film. So,
speaking of canon, that's another thing we have to move back to.
We do have to talk about the what did you call it? The
arachno-humanoid bullshit.
The arachnoid humanoid bullshit. So the big scene. I absolutely loved that fight scene in the museum with... So, let me guess, you were in some old-timey coffee shop thinking about...
Renaissance in Italy.
Yes, that's exactly how it went.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh my god.
Yeah, so...
That scene, I wish I could have had a camera on my face at that point, because that is, like, my preferred art style. So, like, when I saw that, I just went, oh my god, like, incredible. Yeah. Okay, so anywho, that scene.
So it has been a long time. So I should have watched Into the Spider-Verse before going to see Across Spider-Verse as a refresher, but I didn't. But, you know, I remember all the different animation styles and everything was so... But there was a little piece of me that kind of forgot just how different everything was in those styles.
Yeah.
And so when Gwen was fighting whatever his name was, Birdman.
The Vulture.
When I saw that going on, I'm like, oh, that's what we're getting.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, everything was a pretty solid, continuous animation style and art style.
Yeah.
I think Peter might have been a little bit, but that could have just been the way they animated the lizard. Or dinosaur, whatever he was. So,
Komodo dragon.
Yeah, Komodo dragon. Actually, I actually think it was a Komodo dragon. But yeah, when they started fighting and there's the way they were interacting with each other, I'm like, this is what we're getting.
Yeah. All of their different, like, web styles, all of their different fighting styles, which actually is something that I noticed the second time around. Like, you really get to see that in that first scene. Like, with, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting her name.
Motorcycle?
Yes! Oh my god!
Are you, oh, this thing? Yeah. You know, my husband didn't want to know what it was, but, you know, he's corny like that.
I hope it's a boy! I love her.
So
Can
good.
you adopt me? What? So good. So good. Oh my god.
So, you were saying about their different fighting styles?
Yeah, just, like, getting to see, really getting to see the originality and how much detail they're putting into that, both, like, animation-wise and story-wise, to show, like, yeah, dude, these people really are, like, from different universes.
Yeah.
Same text, different font.
Same text, different font. I like it. So, in that scene... So, seeing it the first time, I didn't really pick up on this at first. But, so, we'll get to this later, but my theory about who the villains are going to be in the next movie, the three, I kind of picked up a little bit more towards that theory watching the second time when Miguel was going to, like, tiger rip off the Vulture's head, but the helicopter popped up.
Yeah.
I was like... Oh, like, because when I first saw it, I was like, oh, okay, that universe Spider-Man can do something like that. But then when I saw it again, I'm like, no, that's
something.
That is something. That's more than foreshadowing.
Yeah.
That's like 5 darkening. Also, one of my favorite lines is after they save... Well, also, badass scene where they're all using their individual webs to stop that helicopter.
Yeah.
And then it falls... And it gets right down. Here's the people, and the helicopter comes down, and it stops, and you just hear that one voice. I think it's a Banksy. You know, or like when they slice open the giant metallic balloon animal, and it falls over and just opens up to a bunch.
Cool.
Oh, that's cool. It just those little throwaway lines throughout this movie, or like little looks that people give in the background and everything. It's just. It's stuff like delightful. That, the second time seeing it, that I really was able to pick up on and appreciate, because I wasn't just so focused on, like, I don't know, I guess I kind of, like, I got to go into it looking for those types of things.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't just so focused on just the story. So, the Spot.
Yeah.
He, like, from an artistic standpoint... Absolutely love him. But that whole convenience store scene.
So good.
You know?
So good.
Are you robbing me? Well, actually, this belongs to the bank. And I mean, when you think about it, they're the real criminals.
Oh my gosh. This is the first time I've robbed anybody. Can you please stop making this a bad experience?
And Miles, how much for the empanada? If you can get him out of here, it's on the house.
Yeah.
Like, great. put your life at danger for an empanada.
I mean, what would you do for an empanada? Or dare I say, a Klondike bar?
Yeah. I feel a lot of Miles's kind of like internal battle in this film of like wanting to tell his parents so bad that he's Spider-Man because he's nothing but a letdown to them, of course, you know, and I feel like that's just kind of the MO for Spider-Man.
Right.
You know, but you know, where they're going through his grades, and in Spanish he got like a A-, or was it a B+? A-.
Yeah, A-.
And well, he's just a tough grader, and I missed a few classes. Well, how many? And then the guidance counselor. 5?
It's actually 6.
Yes.
She's like, I love, there was a little Easter egg that I absolutely love. Like when the mom snaps at Miles, it was like the colors of the Puerto Rican flag. And I was like,
I didn't even pick up on that. See, this movie
she
just
snaps him and said, she's like, "Que tu hables, porque no?" Like, it was so good. It was so good.
I see, this movie has so many of those just tiny little Easter eggs and things that to really look for that. One thing I thought was interesting, this is something that stood out to me, and it's so stupid. It's a throwaway thing. Where he's running upside down underneath the bridge to get to the guidance counselor, and he's got the papers falling out of his backpack, but he only goes and, like, web slings one of them.
Yep. What was on that paper?
What was on that paper?
What was on that paper?
I guess we'll have to wait until the next one.
Okay.
To be continued.
Oh my god.
Right?
Ridiculous.
Watch. That's going to be the climax of the film.
What was on that paper?
They're facing...
It was a spot.
Yeah, it was probably like a Spanish test, and like they needed to guess some password or something.
Oh my god. No, I was gonna say like it was a scrap piece of scratch paper that he had while he was drawing, and there's just like a spot on it.
That's actually a really brilliant idea.
See, this is why I am a creative.
Sure. So, HQ.
Yes.
It seemed like the vast majority of all of those Spider-Man, same style, same, just everything. Which, I don't expect every single one of these throwaway characters to be, you know, all individual. Except I feel like some just seemed a little bit different than the rest that got a little bit more of like a close-up. Like, the Spider-Mobile, when that came in, that had a...
Peter Parker.
Yes. When that came in, that had a little bit of a different feel, kind of more like a little comic booky.
The oh god, what is it? The tech one, the tech girl who's
Spider-Bite.
Spider-Bite, yes. So
she
was very different.
Yes.
Even like one of the background characters, there was like a Spider-Woman with a hijab on. Like she definitely had a lot more detail on her.
So like, I think ones that were shown a little bit more prominently got that little bit more detail, but for the most part, they were all pretty similar. Like, now let's go ahead and spotlight some of the favorites that we saw. The cowboy.
Oh my god!
Why does the horse need a mask?
To protect her identity. So good. Spider-Cat.
I was just about to say Spider-Cat. The T-Rex.
Yes! So good.
I was so bummed when I was told that there is no Spider-Cat or
Spider-Rex.
Or Spider-Rex. Or... I mean, his name would have to be something like... Spider-Ranosaurus.
Hold on. Arachnosaurus Rex.
Arachnosaurus Rex. Shing! So... those guys were great. How about the super depressed Spider-Man?
Oh my god.
I can't go on. No,
I'm just remembering a particularly traumatic memory. Wow, that was really bad. That was me in high school.
That was a lot of us in high school. I think the point of the movie that we're at now is actually a great place to kick off the community conversation. So, what were some of your takeaways? And we'll kind of go back and forth on this one here. So, yeah, what did you, how would I say it? Like, what did that movie say about Community?
So for me, there were 3 big points in the movie that had to do with Community.
Yeah.
The first is when Miles' parents are asking, like, "Oh, are you hanging out with these friends?" And he's
yeah.
Well, yeah, but Wanda and Peter are out of town.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he has nobody. Like, he doesn't really have friends at school. He has this roommate, which I'm kind of picking up on the vibe that he's not really friends with him.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have a community. He doesn't have an inner circle. He's so desperate to join, that, like, Spider Squad, right? Because he's like, I don't have community.
The elite group.
The
small elite group of Spider-Man.
Right. Like, he's just so desperate to be a part of something.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I mean, we could bring the topic of, like, just politics into it, too. Like, not feeling like you have a place.
Oh, that type of... yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it's like his parent, he wants to, be Spider-Man.
Right.
And he wants his parents to know. His parents, obviously, having no clue, they want to see him excel in school, go off to college, and, not move out of Brooklyn. Manhattan? Or is it Brooklyn?
It's Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. So, like when they were talking about the school in New Jersey, where his mom's like, New Jersey, no, like, that's too far.
Yeah. And he's like, we live in Brooklyn! Like,
right. Like, I mean, to my understanding, like, that's just a hop, skip, and a jump away on the train.
Yeah.
And so, he's wanting to just go out, but yet, how do I say, like, his parents are kind of like, well, like his mom. His mom said when she, like, was kind of opening up of, like, you could go off with Gwen, she's like, I just have a hard time accepting that my little boy is now this grown man. And it's like, oh yeah, like, there's that letting go aspect, and, he wants to... What did he say to his dad when he was as Spider-Man?
You gotta let him spread his wings like this.
Yes!
So good. This was just a little detail that I picked up on in that college meeting that they had, and we don't have to focus on this at all. But he's trying to go to college to study quantum physics, so, like, traveling dimensions. Mm-hmm. He's trying to get to see Gwen.
Oh, 100%.
100%. And that's just how desperate he is at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I think it goes beyond. Sorry. I think his desire, like, drawing Gwen and all that, when she, flipping through the sketchbook and everything. Mm-hmm. I think his desire to, like, see her, I think it's far greater than just your typical romance. Exactly, your love 100%. Story and everything. It's like
100%.
I want, like, I don't fit in. I found my people. The other Spider-Man. Like, I need to be with them. That's where Community is.
And she was his sort of gateway to the Spider-Verse.
That's right.
So I'm sure he associates her with, like, that community and like that side of the universe and that side of the world.
Right.
The thing that I found very interesting was when he gets to HQ and there's that whole absolutely epic chase scene.
That starts off with everybody get Spider-Man! Huh!
Yes, iconic. I'm so glad they referenced that. I'm
so happy that they did that.
I'm so glad that they did that, because how do you not?
Exactly.
With all of the Spider-Verse, with, like, both Marvel and Sony, like, happening, you have to be able to acknowledge that. It's, like, it would be stupid if you didn't.
Right.
So, anywho, like, he goes to... We get that epic chase scene, We learn about the humanoid arachnid bullshit canon.
Yeah.
Freaking whatever.
The canon web.
The canon web. And we learn that Miles is the anomaly. He just found this community of all these spider people who are exactly like him in one way or another, and they say, you don't belong here.
Right.
Like, he thinks that he has this community, right? And then they're like, get out.
Right. And I think that, you know, what I'm about to say to kind of like give that comparison is, I don't want to inflate what I'm about to say at all to, you know, the amount of pain that could feel of like finding this community.
Sure.
They're like, you shouldn't even be here. You're not even supposed to exist.
You can't sit with us.
It's something similar that we see a lot in various nerd communities where, and this is something that, do I actually think it's going to happen in my lifetime? No. But I would love to see it. You know, it's one of our goals as cross-platform media is to eradicate gatekeeping.
Right.
So many times, I remember so many times my first couple of conventions, I'd be standing, when you're in line at Anime Expo, you're in line for 3-4 hours.
Yeah.
And so you hear little pieces of conversation around you just to pass the time, and so you'll jump in. And so I remember some of the conversations where I jumped in and I'm like, oh yeah, you know, I love that anime, you know, whatever it was like, oh yeah, did you read the manga? No. Oh, so then you probably don't even understand why they did this, because they left that out of the anime. It's like, oh, they did? Really? Yeah, but, you know, if you read the manga, like, and it's this whole, like, oh, I didn't know that, tell me more. And it's like, well, actually, you should already know that. It's like, whoa, I just found my people here in a sea of 100,000 people. Yeah. And now, like, you're taking it even...
I mean, events like Anime Expo are for people who are part of that nerd culture to literally all come together.
Right.
That's the Spider-Man HQ, like...
Exactly.
Of like, anime. So, like, yeah.
And so, you have somebody who's starving for community, who thinks that he's found it, and is now, essentially, there's at this point in the movie, an attempt to exile him from that community. And 110%. So, you mentioned the epic chase scene, so I'll take it away.
I mean, Miles has this incredible line where he says, like, people keep on telling me, like, how my story's supposed to go. Nah, I'm gonna do my own thing. Yeah. You're just like, yeah!
It was so smug in the best way possible that
And the way that it's framed, too, so that it's, like, a low shot, even though he's, like, being pinned by Miguel O'Hara, because of the way that that's framed, from a little artistic perspective, the way that that's framed, it makes him look like he has his nose up, and he's like, nah, man, you suck. Like...
Oh, yeah, you're
even
right.
Even though he's in this vulnerable, like, position,
he's still's assuming, like...
Yeah, he's, like, flipping the bird at them. Like,
wow.
It's just crazy.
But I think, so, with the risk of, you know, okay, so, let's put a pause in the community conversation, because there is a point, unless there's anything else you want to say.
I was just going to say, like, the last point that I had seen a community aspect is at the very end when, like, Gwen starts rounding up. Like,
so let's go. We'll get to that.
Gotcha. Okay.
So he gets out, and he gets sent to that world.
Yeah. Oh my
Where his mom's like, "What'd you do with your braids?" And
okay, but also we have to talk about the way Hobie was like, does that little callback.
So actually, yes. Let's go to let's touch on the purpose of the canon. So the purpose of the canon web is there are certain events in every Spider-Man's life that are supposed to happen. One of those events being the commander of the police force dies. Well, for some of the Spider-Man, that commander is someone who's special and important to them. So we look at Gwen. Let's go to Gwen and her dad's scene when she finally returns. And he's just laying on the couch. One thing I really appreciate that they did in this movie, and I understand it's a PG-13 movie, but they probably could have hinted to it. they didn't make it seem like he had just been in like a drunken haze. Like there wasn't like a collection of bottles or anything like that. He was clearly depressed because even though he was at that moral quandary of arresting his daughter, at the end of the day, that's still his daughter.
Yeah. Regardless
of learning that it's Spider-Man. And so they have this epic fight, but of love.
Right. Where really it's just her yelling at him.
Exactly. And then so as the colors are switching, like every camera angle was a different splash of color.
Absolutely gorgeous.
And with her dad about to be the commander, she knows like he's going to die. And when there's that moment of, I quit. When did you quit? About halfway through your speech. I didn't realize it at the first, there was that moment of love that, but what I didn't pick up the first time that I did the second time we talked about this was that means that part of the canon, in a sense, gets broken. I'm sure whoever takes over being the commander is still going to die, maybe, but the fact that I think it kind of hints to, even though the canon itself is set in stone, the people that the canon involves are not.
Yes.
And so when there's that hug where she just runs up to him and the way the colors all just fade in, you got the shapes in the background. Because she was her universe is a modern art universe, right? Yes. So you have that coming in, and that was that's where, we were talking about that video game Grease. So for those of you guys who don't know, Grease is a wonderfully hand-drawn, or at least the main character the player character is hand-drawn, but the entire world is a watercolor design. And so as you're going through, you've got the way the color, would I say grows into the frame would be a right? Expands?
Yeah, expands, fades, like... It almost looks like there's just a drop of water and somebody just drops it onto the paper and it bleeds.
It bleeds. So, the way the color bleeds, I think that is probably the most beautiful scene of that movie. Not just content, but artistically as well. That summed up everything. Because that was... Dad's gonna live. Hint towards how is the canon set in stone, and also that was her dad of kind of like, go, I accept you, go and do your thing, do what you need to do. And I wonder if part of him quitting was because he couldn't bring himself to arresting his daughter.
Damn.
So let's go ahead and wrap this up into a neat bow here. So going to that last scene that you mentioned, and I want to bring this up, and I think it can very well speak to the ugliness of Community at times.
Yeah.
It's so easy when we, in our day-to-day lives, as we're looking for a community, it's so easy to fall into the trap of having this big ideal that no one in this community is going to hurt me. We're all going to get along. We're not going to fight. We're not going to do this. But yet, I'm never going to feel rejected. I'm not, regardless of what it is. So here we are in Spider-Man, where he is being rejected, condemned, and exiled from his community.
And beaten up by the entire HQ.
Gets exiled to the other universe, where that's the universe where the spider was supposed to go, as we find out, which raises the question, who was supposed to be the Spider-Man in his universe? But or it could have just very well been a world of no problems. Didn't need a Spider-Man for a certain, whatever the reason is, but still, from the other perspective of Community, Gwen assembling that team.
Yeah.
If you want to take on your community aspect to that as we wrap this up.
I mean, she creates this, I can't think of a better term than found family, which is something that we you and I especially talk a lot about. My brother. like, I mean, you and I are honorary siblings. We call each other bro and little sis. So I feel like that definitely hits for me, especially seeing like these, I mean, Gwen going, this original like community HQ is like that we do not agree. This is not working. They've kicked out somebody that I really, really care about, and it's not working.
Right.
So I'm going to create my own.
Well, I mean,
community.
even initially going into it, she thought like it was perfection. She found her people.
Yeah.
But then.
And she was begging, let me come with you.
Yeah. She has to be adopted.
Yeah, literally.
But you were saying, so she gets together this team.
And even though it's small, like
her little misfit crew.
Uh-huh.
Her little motley crew.
Get out.
It's an accurate term.
Yeah, it is. It is. Damn. Yeah, but just the way that you have sort of these 3 different examples and different views on community throughout the movie. I think it really speaks to a couple of things. Number 1, in the beginning, this idea of like, you will find your people. The Spider-Man HQ being kind of like that nerd culture, that anime expo that we talked about. Like, yeah, you may find your community, but people aren't always going to be absolutely amazing and perfect. And then again, that reminder of at the end of the day,
unwelcoming.
Yeah, and then again, that circling back to the beginning of the film, which is that same idea of like, in the end, you will find your people.
That's right. And I think also what's really beautiful, and we'll definitely see this in the sequel, to Miles, he's all alone. He's trying to, he's tied to that punching bag.
Yeah,
trying to
with
appeal,
the Prowler's just fits right next to his face.
Like, trying to appeal on his own. Like, we know he's going to do something with Attack of the Prowler because, you know, when he was rubbing the chain, there was a little bit of shock. But what he doesn't know, he thinks that he's been completely exiled. He's got a community of people who are ready and coming after him. Yeah. I can't wait to see that reunion.
Yeah, and I think that's... Now that you point this out, I'm kind of realizing like that's another part of community is like sometimes you're gonna feel alone, like, but if you've got a community, like even in the beginning when Miles is alone, he still has Gwen. She's not there, but she ends up coming after him. Like, you may feel alone sometimes, but at the end of the day, there are people in your corner, and you do have a community of sorts. May not feel like it, but they are always there.
That's right. And, you know, that's exactly what we're trying to accomplish here, is to remind all of you guys, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening, or whatever the case is, whether you're watching the streams or, you know, however it is, like, we always just want to let you guys know that you, no matter how much you feel alone, you're never truly alone. That you always, like Aurie said, you always have somebody that's in your corner. And if you don't feel like there are people in your corner, well, you know, we have our Discord server and we have people here who want to be in your corner. There's zero reason that people should be doing life alone. Like, we shouldn't, we're not designed to do life alone. You know, when you go back as far back in human history, you know, we're tribal people. We will always find a people group to be a part of. And whether that's a people group of something that you were born into, or a people group of how, you know, Aurie and I, you know, we met at church, you know, and, you know, or with other awesome people that I've met in the Discord, you know, in our Discord server, but through the streams. And it's just, you're never alone, and we want to be there and curate this community so that everybody knows, like, oh, there's always people in my corner. So
yeah. And sometimes we're far away. Some of you guys are in other countries. Some of you guys are halfway across the U.S. Like, we're still here for you. We're still together. We've got our own little community.
Yeah,
so.
And I mean, for most people in the Discord server as well, like, everybody knows that, you know, Yocom is one message, one call away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it's someone that actually has my phone number, it's like, yeah, I'm only one text message away. If it's a Discord message, you know, I have no notifications turned on for Discord except for the community, for the cross-platform community and my DMs, because I always want to make sure that I'm available. Even if I'm not available to people, I've made it an effort to, even if I can't talk, to at least send that message of, can't talk right now, you know, is it urgent? Can I call you later around this time?
Yeah.
You know, just to be there and just, you know, because it's like, yeah, if you send out that message and I'm not available, it's like, is it urgent? Yeah, dude, it's urgent. Okay. If I'm at work right now, I'm taking the dog off my table, I'm stepping outside and making a phone call, you know, just, you know, that's really what community is. And for as difficult as it is to do online, and, you know, because you're behind a screen, you're not face to face all the time, we just do what we can. You know, and same, obviously, and then some for our in-person communities as well. So, everybody, thank you so much for watching this episode or listening to this episode, wherever you get your podcasts and YouTube and all those cliche sign-off phrases and everything, right? You know, like, support our Patreon. We don't have a Patreon, so... Yet. Buy our merch. No, I'm just kidding. We don't have that yet either. So...
It's coming. Promise.
So... if you guys do want to support us, all that we ask is that you like this podcast, that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and leave a comment. Let us know what Community means to you guys, or even thoughts about the Spider-Man movie. And, you know, we'll have a link to the Discord server as well in the description below, so that if this really does speak to you guys and you are looking for that new community, then it's, you know, you can come and chat with us. And if you want to come watch the streams, you know, it's mostly me streaming. Every so often we do have some cross-platform crew streams, and we'd love to see you guys there, and I'll have a link for that as well. But, you know, one thing I always make it clear when I end my streams, you know, is I tell everybody I love you guys and I care about you. You know, that doesn't come with empty platitudes, you know.
Okay, that's good.
And also that we're not just trying to build a community. Build a company here. We are legitimately trying to build a community. If I don't make a single dollar from cross-platform media, and I'm actually losing money and I'm still grooming dogs, but yet we've got a thriving and awesome community, that's cross-platform media.
Yep.
You know, so thank you guys again. We'll see you all real soon. Bye.
Bye.